The PodBarber. Coming up on today's show.
Therapy helps you learn lifelong coping tools. So you don't have to go to therapy because you've got a problem. Maybe therapy should be part of a school curriculum, you know. They teach you lifelong coping skills, how to understand yourself, how to reflect on yourself, which means how to understand other people. They equip you with the ability to handle situations. Everyone has a window of tolerance. And when you are in crisis, you don't have one. Your window of tolerance is gone. So you go to therapy to expand your window of tolerance, to make you more equipped to deal with things that life would throw at you. So yeah, maybe therapy should be part of something the much younger generation could have.
You're listening to the PodBarber. I'm championing the chat, proving conversation is the cure to better mental health and well-being. Meet my guests from all walks of life showing vulnerability and sharing wisdom. Sit in on my chats and be part of reality entertainment. Join the PodBarber tribe. Subscribe, share and like people. Feel the sonic positivity we're pumping right at you. You, my friends, are not alone. Who's next, please? Well, I'll tell you who. We have the very talented Cassie Rae Wardle in the pod today. This pint-sized person grew up in a low-income single-parent household. Not to be held back, she's gone on to achieve a degree in art and animation, has forged a brilliant following for her lingerie modelling on Twitter, and I dare say many will admire her outspoken, feisty views on feminism, a constance for discrimination within the workplace, a survivor from her own journey with mental health, as a victim of gaslighting. There's lots to chew here today, as always, but without further ado, we welcome Cassie to the pod.
Hello.
Hi, darling. How you doing?
Good, you?
Yes. It's lovely to see you a little bit earlier. We got to hang out, have a little bit of breakfast. You had a cup of tea, I had a cup of coffee. I prefer stimulants. How you feeling?
Good.
Excellent.
Excited. Ready.
All the emotions. I know you know because you listen to the PodBarber anyway, so you've got your noodle. So here goes. A Chelsea blue is Cassie Rae Wardle. Talented, petite, quirky lingerie model. Corsets, stockings, nipple tassel, exquisite bottoms and tops. Don't judge this kitten, stop being creepy, that's gotta stop. With all art comes expression, accepted in so many forms. Throughout history, glamour drives talent, it should be the norm. When the PodBarber reached out for your help and inspiration, your digital ink got to work in using your skills, your animation. A hardcore gamer, tweeter, the ultimate feline friend. Compelling, compassionate, positive vibes, all that you send. Cassie Rae Wardle, the truth is you mean so much to me. So let your story grow wings. Let's see you set yourself free.
Brilliant. Oh, I love that.
So let's hug these mics up. So how are you doing right now, Cass?
Good.
Let's get into it a little bit. Within the poem, the intros, there's always a little bit of content. You come from a single-parent household and people probably don't assess themselves and think that these things are so important, but they set us up. Just tell me a little bit about growing up like that, what it was like.
It's always really just been me and my mum, but she is an exceptionally strong, independent woman. She's gone out there, she's raised a child, she's had a job the whole time, and I remember we lived off next to nothing, but not once in my childhood did that ever affect our quality of life. And she stands proud to this day, and I've always had that figure to look up to. She has been ever constant amazing.
Paying homage
and I
to your mum.
I don't often get to tell her how wonderful she is, so it's nice to be asked that question. And even through all the hardships, which, I mean, I don't remember them because she protected me nicely. She didn't isolate me from them, and she never hid me from any difficulties that she was going through. But she made sure that I understood them, therefore they were never as much of an issue. Because being a single parent is hard. I think 83% of single parents are still women nowadays. And they have to fight really hard to keep doing well. So it's always nice to see them succeed.
Exactly. I think everyone's circumstances are sort of, and their story is so personal to them, and you don't know what you don't know unless it surrounds you and it's made obvious. And it sounds to me like, you know, not having that fatherly figure wasn't made obvious, but naturally you miss out on some things. But if there's someone that can fill the cup up, you know, with more of the good stuff, then you're probably doing better than a lot of people in dual parenting households. It sounds like she's a great lady.
Well, I was very fortunate with you saying of the missing father figure. I have gone to therapy for the past, I want to say about 5 years now, on and off. And that was one of the major questions that gets asked very early on. Do you feel like you have daddy issues? And that is the overriding phrase, isn't it? And I like the phrase that you use, fill in the cup. My cup was full already, although I didn't have a father figure. I had very strong uncles. I had an incredible nan. I eventually come to work in a barber shop full of men, all different kind of men. And I had some very wonderful male friends around me as well. So my cup was empty of a dad, but full of very good male figures.
Positive personas from the outside coming in, lending a hand. It hasn't necessarily shaped you in a bad way, has it? It's almost given you a different type of resilience and a bit more acceptance over other positive situations.
Yes, nothing can ever be completely positive. One thing I did learn from therapy is I would have missed out on a lot of important intimate behaviours that I should have learned about from what can only be a father. So I never got to understand how proper relationships should have been from the very beginning, simply because that element wasn't there. No fault of anyone's, but I come to understand that later on when I was entering my own relationships is that I was going in blind. So I was doing things wrong or making really quick, hasty decisions that meant things were emotionally very hard for me. It's a learning curve, but it made the curve a lot longer, more difficult.
What would you say would be the cues now that you'd like to advocate for, that you would tell your younger you?
Just be slow about your decisions. Think about them first. Think about yourself first. Think about how something is going to make you feel, how someone's going to make you feel. And just think, is that the right way for me to act or for someone else to act? It expands into a lot of relationship things of look out for red flags. Are these people treating you well? That's what you might have missed out on when you were younger. You know, your father treating you nicely, how you're meant to be treated, especially as a woman, with respect, with dignity, with kindness, are the people that you're expanding that to, whether that is relationship, friendship. Are those people treating you right? Just look at that calmly.
Yeah, start to identify with what feels right. Basically, get in control, start to learn.
And ask questions. If you get to a point where you're not sure, what is this? What does this mean? This person said something to me or this person did something to me. What is that? Ask. It's easy to say ask for help because it is hard, but find someone you can go, actually, this person said this thing to me and I don't know if it was malicious or if it was just a joke, or if you are comfortable enough, you ask that person, what did you mean by that? Direct. Yes.
Bang.
Yeah.
It's okay if you don't know something. Certainly, when you're younger, you're not born with wisdom. The idea is that you discover it, shape it. It's malleable to your own circumstance, wherever you live, postcode, privilege, politics, whatever the hell's going on at the time. So you've got to sit there and go, well, why? Well, where? When? How? There's a few simple things and get some answers and then assess what you feel is right. Develop it.
Become aware of you before you think of other people, but bring that in.
When you were doing therapy, I don't know if you used to keep a diary before or used to journal anything, but did they suggest that was quite a good way to then start to sort of judge your feelings? Do you do things like that?
I was suggested a lot of things in therapy. Most important thing I want to say is there's so many different types of therapy and not everything's going to work for you. I went to general talking therapy and I had some CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. And within that, I was referred to a number of different techniques, mindfulness, journaling. I was very comfortable with the talking therapy. I didn't find that anything else particularly worked for me. But that's because I'm a really empathetic person anyway, so I bounce off of someone else talking easily. So that was perfect for me, but it won't be perfect for everyone else. I think I only really started getting my feelings out recently, in really subtle cues, resharing things on Twitter. I started using the word survivor, which is what I identify with, and just little things like that. Bringing that element in gently for me.
You found your superpower through sort of building that confidence, and that came from those first little reshares, those first few statements, those first few powerful quotes that you start to see some of your friends maybe making.
Yeah.
So perhaps for those looking in, there's the cues that someone's dealing with something, but they're potentially on an upward feeling. If I was noticing someone on social media using it for a powerful and a positive, and they start to look like they're identifying with these sort of
with something,
with these powerful sentences and stuff, you sort of think, yeah, there's something going on there.
Why is that person
Ask
doing
the
this now?
questions on someone else, yeah.
I think it's also really important for people to notice small things about people, because I didn't realise what had happened to me at all. This is one thing that I worry isn't discussed enough, is women actually don't realise what has happened for a long time, because processing things like that takes a long time. The statistic that I always remember is 7% of rape is by strangers. The rest of that is relationships and acquaintances, which is horrifying. So if you think, why haven't you realised what's happened to you? You don't, because 9 times out of 10 it's someone that you know. And it's only when you start to break down, which is what happened to me. I started having panic attacks, I started getting wild anxiety, and I started getting what's called STUG, so STUG, and which is subsequent temporary upsurges of grief. So it's when you're just going about your day and all of a sudden you just want to start crying. Something's triggered something in your memory and you're like, oh, God. And then you're in the middle of Waitrose about to bawl your eyes out. And you can't function like that. And that's when I went to therapy and someone started saying, why is this happening? And all the light bulbs start
to peel the layers off. I think it's important to start off, where this began.
Yes.
So moving on from what was a reasonably happy, extremely loving, supportive family unit, then to be bounding into the world, and you ended up at uni. Where'd you go? And tell me a bit about that transition for you.
So I went to Ravensbourne. For the first year we were in Chislehurst, which was on the outer skirts of London. And then for the remaining few years we relocated to the O2, right in the middle of London. I had the best experience with my animation class. I absolutely loved every single character in that class. And we become a family. It was lovely. And I think without that, I would have really struggled, because every time I walked into that room, you just had this absolutely sensational bunch of people.
Coming from that low-income house, what was the disparity between you and your peers, like, because of the financial? How did you make it work for you?
I had no help from my mum, obviously, so through the system I got the full grants. All of that money went on rent for me, so I was not allowed to live in the dorms. I had to privately rent immediately from the very beginning, because I didn't live far enough away, so there weren't any student housing for me to take. Ravensbourne did it on the basis that they only had X amount of student dorms, and those went to the people who lived the furthest away.
So perhaps they didn't look too personally into the situation.
No, it was a simple distance basis. But because I was so close, I didn't get into that, so we had to privately rent. I got to learn how to live like an adult immediately. Mm-hmm. I was not ready for how harsh that was, especially because my first landlord was a horrible old man, and he let us live in squalor.
A familiar story.
We lived happily, don't get me wrong, but the place was damp. Our saucepans grew mould. The radiators didn't work. We had to have dehumidifiers everywhere. The punishing factor that he brought up is we didn't complain enough about all this stuff. Well, we were young adults that didn't know how to deal with any of this. We would mention it on the phone and be like, oh, the radiators aren't working. But we didn't follow up with an email, or we didn't make a complaint to the housing company that ran the lease. And therefore, at the end, we had our deposits taken away from us. So he ripped away almost £1,000 from 3. I suppose technically we were still children at that age. We were 18, coming on 19, and he didn't give a monkeys. And he further sent bailiffs after me 2 years later for the unpaid council tax.
Wow.
Luckily, the bailiffs were very, very nice people. And they said they see this all too often and helped me rectify the situation.
It's you mentioned about becoming an adult, isn't it? And it's those adult skills. So again, it just makes me think straight away.
I didn't have any. I wasn't prepared for...
Yeah, preparedness. That's what we should be teaching our children. There's so much effort to run a household and to avoid these pitfalls, but
we could have fallen into that.
It needs to be, and it could set you up terribly for the next few years, which it does do to a lot of people. And also student debts are ridiculous anyway. So to try and support the learning of youngsters and the education of youngsters, you've got to tool them up a bit more with the realities of
living. Tax.
Yeah.
This was something that, I don't know if it's still a thing now, but all of me and my friends were like, no one taught us basic life skills.
I don't think they do, mate.
No one went. When you move out, you pay council tax. Like that's the bottom line. When I started paying bills, because normally when you first move into student accommodation, everything's inclusive, so you have your rent and your bills all in one pocket. Whereas there, I was like, bills, council tax, water, broadband, a TV licence. No one teaches you proper legalities about being an adult.
Yeah, and we need to address that.
We were very lucky that between the three of us, we could figure it all out. But maybe if I didn't have my housemates, maybe we wouldn't have figured all of that out. It was very hard. And I mean, I also always had to have a job because all of my money went on rent that I got from the kind of government grants. But I always had to have a job to have money to go out and do student things.
Yeah, and then work really hard to make sure you get your degree.
Yeah.
What did you get in the end, just out of interest?
I got a 2-1 and a BA honours in animation.
You're really good at drawing. And actually, I really love the fact that although you don't work in that industry per se, you still have offerings that relate to you gaining something back from it. And actually, all the people that you work with gain something from it, i.e. the PodBarber logo. It's really cool.
I do think it's important when reflecting on you saying we should have been prepared. I feel like I picked my degree on a whim, again, because the people educating me weren't equipped enough to tell me more about what I should be thinking about. You know, my inexperienced mind at that point was like, oh, brilliant. I love cartoons. I love drawing. I love computer skills. This must be for me. But it was only when I was kind of 2 years in and that you have a professional who has worked on numerous big selling films that goes, you do realise that you need to work for either minimum wage or free for a few years in these companies before you get anywhere, right? And you go, oh, I'm expected to work a full-time job for next to nothing in the capital. That's inaccessible to most people.
I was going to say probably 95% of people, realistically.
I know one person out of my year and the year above and below me that is in an animated job. You do get a lot of people out there going, oh, well, why aren't the students paying their debts? Because I'm getting about £900 interest a month.
You're being penalised.
Sorry. So what I am paying off is being added to already.
And let's just quickly, so your job currently now, or has been since getting your 2-1, you're now working in an industry that you're getting the reward of that debt is helping you to pay that off because you've got a job in that industry. Is that the case?
No.
Oh, funny that. Familiar story. No, I am now a complex personal injury handler for road traffic accidents. You value the claim?
Yes, we value the claim and we pay the appropriate amount for the injury. There's guidelines for all of that, so it's not just...
There's proper infrastructure there.
Yes.
It's not all done on a Friday afternoon pretending that you're doing something and then you all get together and go, yeah, by the way, did you say this to that person? Yeah, because we'll get this much, you have this much, I'll have that much out of it. It's not like that, is it?
No, it's not like that.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay, good. So, let's get back on track. University was the point where you also met the person that brought you to your trauma. Your first probably serious boyfriend, I dare say. Just tell me about that man.
At the time, obviously, I thought everything was normal. I met someone and we had an abusive relationship for 2 years. It crippled me. It's amazing how one person can absolutely annihilate your life, not just then, but subsequently for the years and years after. I did say I wasn't aware of what was happening at the time. I wasn't, because the entire relationship was focused on being gaslit the entire time. Gaslighting isn't when someone doesn't agree with your perspective or doesn't care about hurting you. It's when someone's manipulating you into questioning your sanity or memory in order to gain control over you in a situation. Most of the time, the people that will do that will be narcissists, and they will have inherently their own problems anyway. So, being gaslit for 2 years removes every single aspect of your personality. You are torn apart without being realised. So it's almost like someone's taking little pieces of you away so you don't notice. And by the time you've noticed, you're shadow your former self. So you don't have a clue how to deal with that. So they assault your version of reality. Everything is your fault. There is absolutely no room for compromise at all. No matter what that argument is, everything is your fault. By default, that takes away your ability to think clearly. So by thinking that everything is your fault, you start questioning yourself constantly. Am I the problem? Am I doing this right? Am I wrong? Where did I go wrong? Everything becomes a negative. And that starts making you try to defend yourself all the time against accusations. So, you know, this person's hitting you constantly, and you're arguing about topics that you would have been confident in before. You're trapped.
As that spiralled out of control, you know, were you able to sort of realise at all what was happening?
No. By taking little pieces, the change is so gradual that people just assume that that's you just becoming someone else. So for someone like me, I still maintained that element of me underneath. I was performative. I'd go to university and I'd still be happy. I'd go out and still be happy. I'd have a full day where on the front of things, you would look at me and go, oh, Cassie's all right. You know, look at her in her heeled boots and with the swagger and laughing. And then I'd go home and just sit in silence. There wasn't any awareness or fight in me. I was just exhausted.
Yeah.
You become that person's property. You become a robot and you perform to them going like that. I had 2 occasions where he called the police on me, ironically, and it was the second time that I went, that's enough. That is enough. And it was awful, absolutely awful. So the first time the police were called, we'd been on a night out, so we were all very inebriated, and he took my keys from me because he was convinced that there was something on my laptop that he needed to see or have or something. So he took my keys from me and locked himself in my flat. I got myself back in that flat and we had an altercation. It all got very heated and he called the police on me, saying that I was being the aggressor. The police come round, they took him away, made him go home.
Yeah.
Frankly, they did nothing. They kind of give you the domestic abuse leaflets. There you go, have a read of these. Do you realise what's going on?
So they could see that it wasn't the way that he'd played that out. They gave you the leaflets.
They gave me the leaflets.
Yeah.
So they obviously knew something was going on.
They could tell, because they're not stupid.
But they didn't do anything about it. And then the second time I have spoken about a lot in therapy. It was my birthday, and he had come round in the morning and given me all of these gifts. And we had gone out to the pub to have a nice time. All my friends were there. You know, he was performing, I was performing. It was a good time all round. And when it come to going home, I need to point out that alcohol was used as a weapon against me. We would go out and drink because he knew that by going out and drinking, I would be really forgetful. So he would also use that as a weapon. So he would make sure that I was drunk. So anything that he may have done that day or that evening, the following day he could go, it's because you were drunk. So again, we'd gone out. I was very drunk. He would just buy them and put them in front of me. And this person's not doing this to hurt me, I'm having a nice time. I don't remember everything from that night, but I remember he pushed me into a flower bed and stole my bag, which had all of my possessions in, my phone, my keys, my money, my cards. And because we were making such a scene, someone called the police. The police come and picked me up. So they basically went, what's going on? And I just went, I just want to go home. And they went, right, we'll take you. You can go, you can make your own way somewhere. And basically fobbed him off. Mm. They wouldn't let me go back to my flat because they wouldn't let me be alone. So I went to my friend's flat who was round the corner. So I gave him a call and went, can I come and sit with you and have a cup of coffee? I'm having a really bad night.
Yeah.
I can only assume that he assaulted me on that night because I was covered in cuts and bruises across my whole body, not just from falling over. So I was really sore, I was really bedraggled, and I went round my friends and we had a coffee, simmered down, and then we got a knock on the door. And my friend was like, oh, he's here. He says he's got your stuff. That's fine. I'm going to go get my stuff and I'm going to go home. Again, because I was being so performative, this friend probably didn't have a clue what subsequently unfolded. And I went outside and I was like, right, can I have my bag back, please? I just want to go home. And he refused to give me my bag back. My mind just went like that. And I snatched my bag back, ran for my life, got myself into my flat, locked the door, and he come pounding on the door, started trying to break in. My housemate was actually in at the time, and he was like, what the hell is going on? And again, he called the police on me, saying that I'd stolen his property. And the police turned up again. The officer sat down on the bed with me and was like, look, he's saying you've stolen from him, and he's given us a list of everything that you've stolen. It was all of the presents that he'd bought me. Mm-hmm. And I was obviously really upset. So I was all over the shop, and the officer just went, look, just put everything in a bag, I'll give it back to him, and you can be left alone. And he did. I put everything of his in a bag, everything, the lot. It's almost like all of the anger that I didn't have had appeared.
Yeah.
And I threw everything into a bin bag, gave it to this officer and was like, just get him out of my life. But again, they didn't really do anything. I got the leaflets and then they potted off, and I rang one of my friends that night, and I think I just howled at him for 4 hours. He probably still didn't have a clue what happened, but I just howled. But it's so apparent, the gaslighting. He rang the police on me twice.
So the guys around, your friends, the police, no one could see this taking place, or was there any level of understanding? My
friends were all across the country, so the people who knew couldn't help as much as they wanted to.
So he could just pray?
He did. But that man is not just that one man in my life. That man is many people. And that frightens me endlessly.
The potential of what some
people can do. Most of what he did was on an emotional level. Some of what he did was on a physical level. And I am going to say it, midway through our relationship, that level did come to be rape. And again, I did not have a clue of what was happening to me at the time, what had happened to me. And I didn't until I went to therapy 5-ish years ago. And it's only when my therapist went, do you not realise what's happened what do you think's happened to you? And it was only at that moment when I went, oh my God, that man raped me. And that was a horrible, defining moment that I should never have experienced.
Hey there, it's Howie. Just interrupting really briefly, I've got a quick favour to ask. We don't run ads on the PodBarber, but if you're finding this podcast helpful, or if you know someone who might benefit from listening to it, please take just 10 seconds to share this episode by tapping on those 3 little dots on your podcast player. From there, you can text or email a link to the show and spread the word of what we're trying to do here. That'd be great. Mick and I really appreciate your help. Okay, back to the show.
One of the questions that I'm afraid of getting asked, and I know someone will ask me, is why have you never done anything about it?
Okay.
Why didn't you tell the police, or why didn't you go to the police, or why aren't you doing something now? So I'm just going to read you some quotes said by real judges in actual rape trials. These are
final words.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read you a few out and people can make their own.
Read ahead.
So as the gentleman on the jury will understand, when a woman says no, she doesn't always mean it. Men can't turn their emotions on and off like a tap like some women can.
Wow.
I hope you'll be able to keep your well-paid job, and the couple of weeks you spend in prison will be treated by employers as part of your holidays. That was said to an actual guilty rapist by a judge. It seems on the evidence that this child has not suffered as a result of these offences. That was to...
A victim, a young victim.
A very young victim.
Wow.
This was a rare sort of rape. It's not like someone being jumped on in the street. This is within the family and does not impinge on the public. And that person got a 2-year suspended sentence.
Sounds like the observations are personalised, aren't they?
If someone doesn't want to have sexual intercourse, the body will shut down. The body will permit something to happen unless a lot of damage is inflicted. The victim in this case, although she wasn't necessarily willing, didn't put up a fight.
Oh my God.
And then someone even had the audacity to just say clearly a drunken person can consent. Why couldn't... This was actually a judge as well. He said pain and sex sometimes go together. Why didn't you just sink your bottom down into the basin so they couldn't penetrate you?
What?
These are all in court.
It's horrifying, and it's the...
This is the attitude.
These are quotes. Where did you find these quotes from?
So this was... someone actually made a thread on Twitter about all of the judge cases to prove a point. And
this has all been validated and researched?
Yeah, there are all of the links.
Oh, wow.
On each of them, and the judge and the date.
Yeah, so it's not just someone sort of just trying to really bait things up and...
No, this was just a simple, these have been physically said. And I mean, if you wanted to look the quotes up, I'm sure you can find the case law.
I don't want to.
No.
I'm sure that these things are said.
I'm going to show you an infographic. So that was from the 2019 statistics.
Yeah, so you've got 10 people jailed from that many...
Well, if you imagine that's...
cases?
Yeah, these are actual rape cases. So out of all of those on an infographic, so it's a lot of little people in a square, and there's a little red section of people that were jailed. You know, you look at that and that's probably, what, 2%?
The worrying thing there is the biggest part of that graphic is reported.
Because you're just not believed.
Because you're put off, because the system is like...
And also the system is there, so when you go through a rape trial or you consider reporting a rape or a sexual assault, that person is required to re-traumatise themselves over and over and over again. You've got to tell that story, you've got to justify yourself multiple times and go through what's quite possibly the most horrific moment of your life constantly to most likely be ripped apart at the end.
There's a defence and an attack, and they both want to close the case for the person paying them or who they're representing.
Yeah.
And
it always goes into, the most common ones is she was drunk, she was wearing provocative clothing.
You're wearing provocative clothing today, and it's because that's what you do. But that doesn't mean that
it's
you're
not
up
consent.
For it.
We're back to consent.
Yeah,
and if someone is inebriated, whether they're drunk or drugs or anything, if that person isn't in a fit state to consent, you should be able to say, I don't think this is appropriate. Rape and abuse trials, 9 times out of 10, there are no evidence because you don't get assaulted and think, my God, I've got to collect evidence.
Yeah.
You know, at
You were
no point,
traumatised.
at no point when what happened to me did I think, I need to prove this somehow. I was too busy crying my eyes out and considering jumping into the River Thames. So 9 times out of 10, if not, 10 out of 10 cases, you're one person's word against another. So there won't be proper convictions. So I go back to, you need to be believing these people. They can't prove it. And the ones that can will be the more aggressive, attacks and assaults where there will be physical evidence. But the rest of them are going to be with acquaintances and in
Your
relationships.
husband, or even your wife.
What evidence
whatever,
are you going to be collecting?
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
So it is really important that you do believe these people because they can't prove that to you. They can only tell you, and you can only believe them.
You have to support it, don't you? Quite often in your story, your situation, you're a victim in open view. I don't know how people can't see what's going on. They can, because you've been given the leaflets, but they're close friends. Are we not looking too deeply? Are we not assessing the situation? I bet you there's loads of people that will listen to this and they'll go, actually, do you know what?
When I saw her all those years ago, I thought something was off.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask.
You've got to ask a question or say to someone else, look, I don't think something's right here. Can you, if you're not in a great place yourself.
I'm really worried about you.
Yeah, I'm worried about this person to someone else, one of their friendship groups. I always say it, conversation secure, isn't it? So you just got to start a conversation with someone, haven't you? And, is everything all right? But they're probably not going to tell you because they probably don't know because you didn't know.
But conversation saved me. So one thing that was a result of not having any control is that I thought about suicide a lot. I mean, I was next to the River Thames, so I used to go and sit by the river a lot. The professional phrase for what I was going through is suicidal ideation. I didn't have intent. I didn't want to do it. What was going through my mind is that if I did this, it would change my situation. I didn't want to end. I wanted my situation to end. And because of that, I would sit on the bank of the Thames and eventually I'd text someone. Not about my situation, but I'd have a chat. But the talking to people distracted me from the situation I was in long enough for me to be so exhausted, I would go home and go to bed. People talk about their problems probably 1% of the time, whereas it's on their mind all day, every day.
Of course it is.
So if you can talk to them for more than that 1%, you're doing them a huge favour.
The thing with suicide and suicidal thoughts, we get this sort of press connotations and you'll hear it within a sentence from someone. It's a cry for help, it's a this, it's a that. Well, yeah, exactly.
That is the point.
That's the point of it. This person needs help. You didn't want to kill yourself, but you wanted your situation to end. So I wrote suicide ideation is what it was described as.
And suicidal intent is when you have a plan.
Yeah, the plan. Once you've got to a plan, you've got real problems. You've got to get on the front foot and help that person immediately. Because
when people stop talking as well is a huge... When they stop talking, that plan might be in action.
Did you ever phone the Samaritans?
No, because I didn't realise what was going on at the time. I didn't do anything. I just continued and burnt myself to the ground. I possibly was able to achieve that because I was privileged enough to have people who would always support me around me. Not necessarily knowing what I was going through, but I had people to be with. But yes, there are charities like Mind, the Samaritans. If you do ring the police on 101, they can direct you to local services. Even if you're just struggling with everyday life, you should be able to go, I really need to talk to someone. Early days. Prevention is the cure, If you can go and talk to someone early doors when you're feeling worried or you've got concerns, you might stop what would be something terrible. You know, you shouldn't have to be in crisis to get help. Therapy should be so accessible because therapy helps you learn lifelong coping tools. So you don't have to go to therapy because you've got a problem. You know, maybe therapy should be part of a school curriculum. You know, they teach you lifelong coping skills, how to understand yourself, how to reflect on yourself, which means how to understand other people. They equip you with the ability to handle situations. So my therapist always used to explain to me that everyone has a window of tolerance. And when you are in crisis, you don't have one. Your window of tolerance is gone. So you go to therapy to expand your window of tolerance, to make you more equipped to deal with things that life would throw at you. So yeah, maybe therapy, maybe that should be part of something the much younger generation could have, to expand their windows of tolerance, to make them prepared for difficult things that life is going to throw at you.
We all have to share a bit of the weight.
Yes.
That burden. And that could come through learning some core values and virtues at a school age, educating you how to deal with the basics of life and digital life and bill paying, then also to be able to have that cup a little filled up.
Yes.
So that you can then go, right, I'll empty some into you, my friend.
Yes.
Because you need it.
The cup is full is another very used therapist.
I don't know if the cup should ever be full, because that means there's nothing that you can put into it to learn more.
Yeah, but you know, your emotional cup as such, if your emotional cup
the
is...
container. Yeah.
So if your emotional cup is full, how are you going to take on anything else?
You've got to stick a tap in it, open the tap up and let it out.
Open it out.
How do you do that?
Whether you communicate with someone, or you go to therapy, or you spend some time working on yourself, find something that works for you. Like we said earlier, journaling, mindfulness, you know, the meditation, physical activity, you know, going to the gym or going for a run, drawing, hobbies. Find things that make you feel whole, that you can pour some of that emotion into. That's very good if you can't access therapy.
A way to therapize yourself.
Yes.
Your art, let's get onto this. Art, creativity, you're following, you know, Twitter, being a lingerie blogger. Tell me how you got into it, because it's fascinating and I love seeing all your pictures. I think it's great. It was weird to start with.
Yeah.
I will say that, but it's cool.
It ties into everything that's happened to me, to be honest. I was never particularly popular at school. I was the ugly duckling as opposed to the swan for a very, very long time. I was comfortable with that, but I didn't start wanting to be a bit more me until I went to university. And that's when I wanted to start experimenting with my sense of fashion and my sense of personality, how I wanted to be, you know. I wore boots with these massive heels because I thought they were really cool. And I got to start being that. And sadly, that person who ruined my life, he actually used that as part of the control. So I'd go out in an outfit, for example. When I was at uni, it was really in for those sheer lace tops that you'd layer over things. And I wore one with a little cami vest. To be honest, it was pretty reserved. But he still went, well, you know, you probably would have been more popular if you didn't look like such a slut. And he actually orchestrated, I won a competition at one point to do a photo shoot. And he insisted that he come along and be a part of that. And I took some photos in a fancy dress Playboy bunny outfit. And I loved them. I looked at them and I was like, I look really, really cool. Yeah. You know, I didn't look at them and go, oh, damn, I look sexy. I looked at them and I went, look how good I look. Look how comfortable and confident I look. You know, I'm having fun. I really like wearing the silly ears. And there was nothing sexual about it. I just went, oh my God, look at me. So when I eventually got out of that situation, I went, what made me feel really good? And it boiled down to underwear. I went, you know what, if this makes me feel good, I'm going to keep doing it. And then I started understanding my body is my body, and it's a body. It's not a sexual icon. I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to be confident, and I'm going to share that. And there were so many other women doing it. There are so many men doing it as well. In a safe space where we're just being people.
You're promoting amazingly made fashion, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's so glamorous and it's so cool, and a lot of it comes from a bygone era of greatly handmade, wonderful fabrics.
Bras are a very, very difficult fashion garment to make. In essence, underwear is one of very few things that is always handmade. Even though it's made on a machine now, it's still handmade, which is rare. They're really difficult, skilled things to be making. Corsets, I'm wearing one today. They're so practical. You can wear them as a fashion icon. People wear them for medical reasons. They're really great for bad backs.
I might wear it. Can I borrow that for my back?
You can do. They are actually really, you get medical posture corsets and everything.
Absolutely. Yep.
Lingerie actually brings in so much diversity as well. Mm-hmm. I don't say I'm a feminist. I'm definitely a work in progress feminist because I want to be that person that advocates people to be able to be, I'm going to whittle it right down. You deserve to be naked and someone not to go, oh, you're naked. A body's a body and everything on top of that body should be what it is. If you want to sexualise that, there are spaces to do that. But it should be normal. You know, you should be able to look at someone in something and go, do you know what? I love that. As it is. The lingerie community is so inclusive, or certainly in the circles that I'm in, because I make sure that I'm inclusive of other people, hence if I get treated the same. And I like to be more aware of the trans community, the disabled community, the LGBTQ plus community, everyone.
Just people.
Everyone deserves to be involved.
Yeah.
And, you know, if my feminism stems from lingerie, it needs to include all those people. And it does, because everyone can wear underwear. Everyone does wear underwear.
Yeah, I don't think you're defining yourself as a staunch feminist. I think you're more of a equality-based celebration of things.
That's a nice way to put it.
That you like. You want to wear lingerie, you want to do photo shoots and love yourself, love the skin you're in.
Yeah.
Well, that's a celebration. And if you don't like it, you don't have to look at it, do you?
No. I mean, that speaks volumes for everything, doesn't it? If it's not hurting someone and you don't like it, don't follow it. Yeah. Don't look at it.
The greatest thing these days on all these platforms is you can unfollow.
Yes.
It's weird that people continually follow things that they want to preach hate and bile, isn't it? Weird. Don't get them. I love materials recycling, using creativity. Do you add elements to some of this lingerie yourself? I know you're wearing today.
No. So
quickly, I've got to celebrate this because it's only just redawned on me. That's Billie Eilish's.
Possibly.
Come on.
So the pieces that I'm wearing today. So I've got a bra on from Nearer the Moon. Mm-hmm. She recently featured her Eclipse range, which is what I'm wearing on a photo shoot for Billie Eilish in Vogue.
Yeah.
She's an independent one-woman lingerie boutique. I'm also wearing some silk shorts from, again, another little one-person band called Foxtrot Molly. And this corset is from Orchid Corsetry. Again, another one-woman band.
So lots of independence.
All UK. Everything's handmade.
It looks really well made. It looks it's amazing stuff. I think you can get away with wearing it at 9 a.m, walking around here.
Well, I got some positive looks and some very confused looks. Underwear can be outerwear as well, and there are fashion influencers who focus solely on that.
Yeah.
Corsets quite often are used as outerwear.
On and out, in and out of fashion, in and out of magazines for years.
They have been for years, haven't they? God, I mean... Yeah. Let's pick an icon. Let's look at Madonna.
Yeah.
She can do what she wants.
Also, she's putting herself
and if she
really
wants to
good into the
experiment
future.
Like that,
Why not?
Why not?
You go through different periods in life, and I don't
everybody
think we should
does. Men and women as well.
I've got to be honest. As a dad of daughters, I constantly mention that because I'm always looking for cues of how to behave and how to better myself, because I truly believe that I need to be a feminist as well, to try and put myself in the shoes of what needs to be said and advocated for. Would I want my daughters walking out wearing...
this?
I wouldn't mind that, but would I want them walking out showing nipples, for instance. Actually, no, I wouldn't. I would say that in a night out, sometimes you don't need to be so upfront, as it were. On a beach, people used to topless bathe, and now people tend to wear bikinis more often.
We're going back onto our systematic thinking, though, aren't we?
Because, I'm saying it because I'm happy to say that. Because
I respect that, but if we think of, say, for example, if me and you walked into town and we were both topless,
I would feel inappropriate walking through town.
But that's not where I'm going.
Yeah.
Is me and you have both got nipples because that's how the human body works.
Yeah.
Mine happen to be on some big old
tissue
because I'm designed to feed children. That is what my body does. But if me and you walked into town, I would be unacceptable. You wouldn't. But there's no difference between the 4 nipples that would be on display.
Yeah.
Those bodies are the same. The reason why you think it's inappropriate is because women's bodies are so heavily sexualised.
Yeah.
Everything we do comes down to sex, and it shouldn't.
Objectification.
It should not. Respect.
Seems like an appropriate point to ask you my curveball question.
Go on then.
Sex, drugs and rock and roll, Cassie.
Oh, God. Well, I suppose it would have to be sex. So, sex for me, especially now, after everything that I've been through, to me it's a way of being intimate with someone that I want to be intimate with. It is my choice. It is my body, and I can be intimate at whatever level I want to be. It's about reforging really basic emotions for me, and was for a long time. I didn't want people to touch me. I didn't want to be part of that, and when I did, it just become something that I tended to not think too much about. Thankfully now I am in a absolutely wholesome relationship, and sex is gentle for me. Sex is intimate, and it is about reminding myself that I can be kind to myself and so can other people. That is it for me.
That's lovely. Thank you for that, and thank you for everything. Complete honesty and openness. We've learned, and we've got lots to think about, as always. How would people follow you, not in the sense of the creepy stalker way, and check out on your social media if there's any other ladies out there who love wearing lingerie and are looking to connect, get involved in something? Give me the addresses, how they can follow you carefully.
So my main platform is Instagram. I'm on there as the Lingerie Raven. I also have my own little blog where I review the underwear that I generally speaking, my blog is my bought underwear. I do occasionally have sponsored posts where people will gift or pay me to review their products. Mm-hmm. But I would say 80-90% is things I have bought myself. So I am to do as authentic reviews as I possibly can. Twitter, I'm the Lingerie Ray. Those are my main haunts, to be honest.
Yeah. Cassie, I know that you were nervous about coming on air because I know that you haven't shared the intimate issues that you've faced, the words that you have to use when coming to talk about these kind of things. Rape is a particularly provocative word, and we've used it in the sense of a powerful conversation that we hope would be able to be beneficial to other people.
And I would be happy to continue that conversation. You know, if somebody needed someone to reach out, I would be happy to be that person. So whilst this conversation might be finished on our level, I'm always happy to continue the conversation elsewhere.
I can't congratulate you enough on having the courage to step up to the mic, join it with me, and on that note, peace, love, power to your day.
Peace, love, power to your day. Brilliant.
The PodBarber is a That Media and Design production, with Mickey at the mic and Howie at the controls. If you've been affected by any of the topics in this show, you can find more helpful information on the episode's page at thepodbarber.com and search The PodBarber on social and let's get connected.